Good evening, everybody. Councillors and members of the public, the thousands thronging the public galleries, and officers, welcome to this meeting of the Southern Area Planning Committee. As you can see, Councillor Anderson-Payne isn't with us this evening, so I'm taking over again. Before we start, draw your attention to the fire regulations, which are on the screen behind me. And please can we do the usual things with mobile phones. Okay, pause while everybody does that. Thank you. Item 1 on the agenda is the minutes of the previous meeting. Those minutes have laid on the table here for half an hour before this meeting. Can I take them as correct record of that meeting? Agreed. Thank you very much. I'll sign them later if that's acceptable. Item 2, apologies for absence. Emma, do we have any apologies?
We have apologies from councillors Stella Anderson-Payne, Simon Inchbold, Nikki Lee and Christian Hessam. May be late or we may not be here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Declarations of interest. Have members declared any interest before the meeting?
We have a non-pecuniary interest in item A1 from Councillor Stephen Mulliner, as he has known the applicant. Thank you.
Okay. Any other members wish to declare an interest?
Also, membership of Haslemere Town Council.
Thank you very much. Item 4, questions by members of the public.
None received, Chairman.
Thank you. Item 5, I believe Mr. Evans has some matters to inform us about.
Chairman, many thanks. Yes, just one item of change in government guidance which we want to draw to members' attention. By way of a ministerial statement on the 28th of November, the government have changed national planning guidance in relation to planning obligations. In effect, what they have now done is introduced new policy guidance that affordable housing and tariff-style contributions should not be sought from schemes of 10 dwellings or less. And that is a policy which came in as of the ministerial statement and now represents national policy. Clearly, the challenge for this council is that's a significant change in our established and adopted PIC policy, but the view we've taken, and we've discussed it with our legal team and discussed it with colleagues across Surrey, is that that national guidance does take precedence over our local guidance. I think personally it's very disappointing because the whole point of the policy was to try and get infrastructure contributions for incremental development, but unfortunately this is part of the government's growth agenda and trying to find ways of making the planning process easier. So what you'll see in future committee reports is for schemes of 10 dwellings or less, normally there won't be an expectation of planning contributions. There are some exceptions to that in some of our rural areas, and the devil's in the detail, and we'll be sending information to members on that. But I think it's a significant change and a disappointing change, but members need to be aware of it.
Councillor Edwards.
Thank you. Can I ask Matthew, just going back to you're saying 10 properties or less, you see. What is to stop developers developing piecemeal?
That's a really interesting question, and we've had similar challenges in the past with affordable housing, and we've had a lot of schemes in for 14 dwellings. I think we'll have to see how that pans out, and clearly if schemes are coming forward, which will attempt to get round the policy, we'll have to come to a view as to whether we can challenge that. But I don't think we've had any schemes in like that, but if they do come in, clearly we'll need to consider that carefully.
Yes, Councillor Edwards.
Can I come back? I think we need to send a very strongly worded letter to the ministers involved. This is unacceptable. It's just opening the floodgates here.
I'm sure that'll be taken under advisement. Councillor Knowles.
I was going to ask, well, who's expected to pay for the infrastructure then, but I will be seeing the Minister on Tuesday evening, and I'm sure something will be prepared for me to say and hand to him at the same time. I'll say stronger than what I hand to him.
Thank you very much. Anybody else want to make any comment on this item? Councillor Adams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Matthew, what percentage of the properties that we're expecting to build in Waverley fall within that category rather than the larger development?
Certainly in terms of number of applications, that's the majority. In terms of total number of dwellings, I'm not sure. I think we could do that bit of work actually, and if it's helpful, we can come back to you on that.
It might be of help if Robert mentions to the Minister that this will make it considerably easier for councils with sustainability challenges to resist meeting their objectively assessed need.
I can see he's making a note of it. Okay, can we move on then to item 6? Applications for planning permission. 6.1, site visits. In the event of site inspections being necessary as a result of considerations of this application or future on the next planning meeting, these will be held on Tuesday the 3rd of February 2015 at a time to be agreed. Moving on to the only application that we have this evening, application A1. It's on page 5 of the agenda and is the outline application for the erection of 2 dwellings following demolition of an existing building with all matters reserved at 19 St Christopher's Road, Hazelmere. Claire, would you like to introduce the application to the committee, please?
Thank you, Chairman. The application site is located on a corner plot to the west of St Christopher's Road and to the north of the access to Meadow Vale. This is the access road to Meadow Vale there. The property comprises a 3-storey gable-ended building which is currently vacant. The lower ground floor is at the same level as the properties on Meadow Vale. The ground floor is at the same level as the properties on St Christopher's Road, and the first floor is within the roof. The property was previously in a commercial use as a costume hire shop. The proposal seeks outline permission for the erection of a pair of 2-bedroom semi-detached dwellings with all matters reserved for future consideration. This is the site plan that has been submitted. For information, the site area has changed since the original planning application referenced WA 2013/1901. The original application, as can be seen here, had an additional area there. That area that was an additional car parking space has now been omitted, and it should be noted that land to the north of the site, so a strip of land here, has subsequently been purchased by the owners of this application site, but it does not form part of this application. The indicative detail suggests that the eaves and ridge heights of the proposed properties would be 1.2 metres higher than the existing building, and the footprint would occupy the same as the existing building. The building would have a maximum ridge height of 8 metres and maximum eaves height of 4.6 metres, measured from the south side. 4 parking spaces would be provided, 3 on the existing parking area to the rear of the building and 1 on the frontage. A small amenity space would be provided for each of the dwellings to the sides of the new building. So there's an area here and an area here. This is the block plan for the earlier application. It can be seen that, having regard to the reduction in the size of the plot in comparison with the application now submitted, 1 parking space is moved to the front of the site. So that was the earlier application, and 1 space is now moved to the front of the site. These are the photos of the application site. Here we've got the east elevation of the application site building. You can see the relationship to the entrance to Meadow Vale. This is the east elevation continued, so you can see the relationship to number 21, St Christopher's Road. This is the south elevation and the rear elevation, west elevation. This is the north elevation as it relates to number 21. This is the north elevation of 17 St Christopher's Road, which is on the opposite side of Meadow Vale to the application site building. And this is the east elevation of May Cottage, which is to the west of the application site. The site is within the developed area of Hazelmere, wherein the principle of development is acceptable. It is material that the principle of a replacement building containing 2 dwellings was accepted under refused outline application WA/2013/1901. There's been no change in planning or site circumstances, with the exception of the changes to the site size that I've just shown you since that previous decision was made. The previous reasons for refusal raised under WA/2013/1901 related to ecological surveys, with bats being present at the site, and a culverted watercourse. The watercourse is located to the west of the site and runs from south to north across the end of the site underneath the car parking area, and those issues have been overcome under the current application. The Council's Estates and Evaluation Manager is satisfied that, based on the marketing information submitted, the loss of the existing shop could be supported. Officers are satisfied that the site could support a marginally higher building and that the proposal would have no significant impact upon neighbouring amenity, subject to the detail of the design to be submitted at the reserved matters stage. Members will be aware of the updates to the report, which related to minor typing errors. The proposal is therefore considered to be acceptable in principle, and the recommendation is that outline permission be granted subject to conditions as set out on page 25 of the agenda. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. This is a public speaking item, but we've had no notification of public speakers for this item, so we'll take it over to you, gentlemen and ladies. Councillor King.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Before we get into the debate on this, I wonder if we could have some clarity, please, on how many units are actually meant to be in this application. Page 6 talks about a pair of semi-detached dwellings. Does that mean 4 units, which to my mind it does? That's what it says. And it does somewhere say that. And then you turn to page 19 and we're talking about a lower ground floor flat. There is a lot of confusion in the community about the number of units that are there, and having read the report, I actually agree with them. So I really welcome some clarity, please.
The proposal is for 2 properties, which will be semi-detached. Total of 4 bedrooms, 2 in each. That's correct. Thank you, Chairman.
Any other comments? Councillor Molyneux.
It needs to be changed.
Thank you, Chairman. I was just having gained a new interest in the mysteries of flooding and the sequential test. I'm fascinated to see that page 18 is devoted to that, and I was wondering, as this is a flood zone 2 property, are we really saying what is the catchment area for a start for the comparators? And are there really no flood zone 1 sites capable of offering similar residential accommodation? Perhaps we could have some elucidation on that.
Officers? No?
Yes, Chairman. The applicants came back with a sequential test report. They'd obviously had a look at other sites within the Hazelmere area, but they felt that other sites weren't comparable because this is a single-use site where you haven't got retail on the ground floor and residential above, etc. That it is a single plot site suitable for a new residential block with access, and they felt it was an exception within its environment because it's surrounded by a majority of retail properties. So, in principle, it was considered that it passed the sequential test. Thank you, Chairman.
And then, joking apart, I'm afraid I must first of all point out that it's not for the applicant to do the test, it is for us. So unless we have done the test and satisfied ourselves, the test has not been actually applied, and that would make any decision we make liable to review. I would seriously like to suggest that we defer this application so we can be satisfied that the sequential test has been applied by ourselves. And unless we are able to say that if the catchment area is Hazelmere, there are no flood zone 1 alternatives, then judging what I've been finding out about over the past couple of weeks, if this is a flood zone 2 property, I am at the moment unable to see how we could possibly grant permission. So you've got to basically you've got to look at all flood zone 1 properties in your chosen catchment area, and we do have quite a bit of discretion over how large that is. If we find no flood zone 1 properties, then you can look at comparative flood zone 2 properties, and in fact, for one house, I don't think you have to do the exception test. But you certainly, if it's in flood zone 2, you must check out the flood zone 1 options first. And if that hasn't been done by us as a local planning authority, not by the applicant, then we haven't done our job, I'm afraid, and we should do it before we make any further progress.
Matthew, do you wish to comment on that?
Just a few thoughts on that. I think Councillor Mulliner is right. The government policy, which I think we're all still starting to understand and interpret, and court cases will help that process, presents a number of challenges to us. I think what's unfortunately missing from government guidance is common sense. Clearly this is an existing building on a brownfield site. The building's already there, it's already in use, and a common sense approach would suggest that really this is a perfectly acceptable scheme. But I think if members want to be absolutely confident that we're interpreting flooding guidance and the government's guidance on flooding absolutely to the letter of the law, then I think probably on balance it's an approach which I would also suggest members to do take, that they defer this application.
Councillor King.
Thank you very much, Chairman, for letting me come back. I entirely agree. In very short memory, there's been a huge amount of flooding in that area. Properties have had the basements full of water for considerable lengths of time. Now, whether they were as a result of surface drainage water or the river, which is what's in the culvert, I don't know. But certainly most of those residents have been increasingly unhappy over the years until quite recently. The first time they've been dried out, I think, for a long time in memory. And I do think that the flooding issue is a very serious one, particularly for the residents down that lane at the back, where it all flows down there. So I think it's a very sensible suggestion that it should be looked at again. Thank you.
Could I also add that I did send Mr. Lomax, copied, I think, to Matthew and Elizabeth, the guidance that I found, and if you're going to try and eliminate sites in your comparator set, you actually have fairly limited reasons for doing it, and I would urge that we follow those closely. I think what's happened is, it's entirely coincidental that literally within 2 days we've had 2 applications where this has become relevant. But as was pointed out to me by Mrs. Sims, I think, Badchock Lee is going to be coming forward, and that is also full of flood risk areas. So I think also now that we've taken quite a public position on this with regard to the largest greenfield application we've had for many years, we have to be seen to be consistent. And so I think it's important that we can show that we are adopting exactly the same approach to every flood-affected site. But I entirely agree with Matthew. I think that, not for the first time in my life, government policy and common sense are not complete bedfellows.
Councillor Knowles.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I agree with both of my colleagues. And the other thing that I wouldn't be happy with anyway is us granting this the way the report is written, because somebody very clever will come back and say it actually says 4 houses, because it does. And this needs all putting right, and I think the matter, we should go no further but should now go to deferral.
Yeah.
So I've just been taking advice. I'm advised that if we wish to defer in order to undertake these flooding related issues further, we first need to vote on the officer's recommendation. and then we need a motion to defer. That's the advice that I'm being given. I'm seeing looks of scepticism on your faces.
Chairman, can I ask Matthew what he thinks should happen, because you need to find out details, etc., and come back to us. But if we defer it, we will be over the period of judgment.
Chairman, if I can answer that, it's already out of time, so it makes no difference to the process. But I think, having heard the debate, the right approach is to defer it, and we can go away and we can look at the flooding issues and make sure that we are following adequately government advice.
No. I mean, I'd like to propose that we defer for 1 month.
I second.
When we have, okay, thank you. We have a proposal and a second. Well, I'm still being advised that we need to vote on the officer's recommendation first of all, which would need to.
Can the officers withdraw this because I want to accept it, but not without confirmation of the situation we're in. So.
Chairman, officers can't withdraw it. The process is, I'm sure we can do this very quickly, is for you to vote on the recommendation, and assuming the recommendation fails, is to then vote for a deferral.
I'm not sure that actually achieves the desired result. Could we then, taking the sense of the meeting, could we please vote on the officer's recommendation, which you will find on page 25 of the agenda, which is to grant this application? All those in favour of granting?
Before we go to that, Chairman, can the officers go back to the applicant and explain the situation to them, so they don't think that we just... Yeah.
Just to explain what will happen, assuming the application is deferred tonight, clearly what we'll then do is we'll go back to the applicant and explain the reason why it was deferred. We'll need to revisit the report, we'll need to look at the flooding issues again, and we'll bring the report back to committee when those issues have been dealt with.
Okay.
Chairman, my advice would not be to refuse it. My advice is I think we owe it to the applicant, and actually I think it would be a helpful process for us, for you to defer it tonight, so the application remains undetermined, and we can have that discussion with the applicant and do the further work around flooding issues. Chairman, I understand that the point's being made, but I think it is the right approach to agree to defer it, so you're not making a formal decision one way or the other tonight, and then we can go away and do some further work. I think there's a number of precedents to that approach.
Yeah, I'm accepting everything that everybody's been saying. I'm being told by the democratic services that this is the way to do it. I think that I'm going to overrule democratic services.
Yeah, I was going to actually use another route which may help you to say. I was going to ask for justification. I'm not blaming Emma. She's passing on what she thinks is the case,
Yes.
but I don't know this. I don't say I read the Constitution every night that I go to before I go to bed. Maybe once in... But I'm afraid I need to be convinced we don't have the power, and there's a general competence anyway in members, which is under the common law, to be honest. If we think we have not got enough information to make a decision, we have a general competence to say we should defer, and I agree with Matthew.
Yeah.
We're using that rather than the Constitution as such.
Chairman, if I can just explain, the substantive motion is the officer's recommendation. In normal cases in planning, you take a vote on the planning officer's recommendation, which general sense here is that you don't wish to grant, and then someone would do an alternative motion, which, as I'm hearing, is deferral. Then you take a vote on that. Okay.
Councillor Mulliner, can I jump in there? I've just understood what I'm being told from the right-hand side here, which is that we're not refusing the application, we're just not granting it. So the alternative is not a refusal, the alternative is that it's in abeyance until after we have voted on the deferral. Okay? So, can I have those in favour of the officer's recommendation set out on page 25? None. Thank you very much. Can I have those against? 1. Those abstaining? That's all the rest. 5? Oh, and me, 6. Okay, so this application is not granted. I have a motion from Councillor Mulliner that we defer this for further consideration of issues related to flooding. That's seconded by Councillor King. Can I have those in favour of that motion?
First of all, to reword the application.
That is unanimous. Thank you very much. I hope we did that correctly. Item 7, exclusion of press and public. There are no matters arising in exempt. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. And we'll come back to this one after we have some more information. Thank you.